All right, so I got some questions from questions@chalmerswellness.com, and I want to run through those. The first one I got was, why do I push fad diets like keto instead of just a normal balanced diet? So I don't necessarily push keto diets really, really hard. I push low glycemic diets really, really hard. A keto diet is an actual specific thing. However, I get this question actually a decent amount about fad diets and keto. The keto diet is by definition the most researched diet we have ever as a human race. They found out that keto diets would fix epilepsy like 120 years ago. And so they started researching the hell out of it, trying to figure out how they could basically make it a pill. And it has the most research out of any diet we've ever seen. So that is probably, that's I think the funniest piece is when people call a keto diet a fad diet. And it's funny because people are like, well, it's good for medication resistant epilepsy. Okay, so let me break that phrase down for you. Medication resistant means that the keto diet will fix all the epilepsy that the drugs fix, and then it'll fix a whole lot more epilepsy that the medication can't touch, because the medication is not designed to fix things. It's designed to manage symptoms. Drugs are not designed to treat or cure disease. They're there to manage symptoms. So you maintain the disease, but you have to take the pill forever. So that's the whole point. So as far as keto being a fad diet, it is not. It is a little bit more difficult diet because it's by definition usually 3 to 4 times the fat to protein with no sugars. That is an actual keto diet. It's a very high fat based diet. It's really, really good for the brain. It's one of the things that, if we've got concussions, we have dementia, we have Alzheimer's, we have memory loss, we've got any of those sort of things, we put people on it immediately. So the keto, very, 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 oh, and obviously epilepsy. Keto diets have a very, 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 very powerful, very awesome function. I guess it's a little bit difficult. We've made a bunch of food for them. We've made chocolate chip cookie dough balls. We've made some toffee stuff. We've made a bunch of stuff to make keto diets easier because I think a lot of people need that type of help. But they're not fad diets. And that kind of goes back to my whole issue with the calories idea. You guys need to start, like everybody needs to start using their diet based off macro function and the chemistry of what happens in your body. The idea that you're going to use a system that views fiber, sugar, and protein as equal in how the body functions, gets fat, loses fat is absurd. We need to kind of move on past the calories idiocy and go into actual metabolic biochemistry. These foods do these things hormonally to our body. Sugar has tied to insulin, protein's more tied to glucagon. Leptin ghrelin function is easier with fat to control. So basically hunger and satiety is easier to deal with if you're on a higher fat-based diet. So those type of things. When we look at, ideas like, vegan diets that have, that'll meet all your calorie requirements, but almost none of your actual nutrient density stuff, your B vitamins, your iron, your stuff like that. That's where we need to start focusing diet function, in my opinion, is, what are we doing hormonally, and are we getting all of our nutrients in? Those are the first 2 questions you've got to answer. You can do it however you want to after that, but those 2 things have to be answered. So for instance, if you're like, I'm going to run a vegan diet, but I'm going to take 7 supplements, that's fine. Knock it out. Like, that's how you want to play it. I don't have a problem with that. You just got to make sure that you're getting all your stuff in. So that's kind of the big question we have on those. The other one is on, because I get asked the bench press question a lot. Why I'm so anti-bench press. I'm not anti-bench press necessarily. I'm anti-bar. I don't think we should be using bars at all in our workouts. The problem with bars is, if you're using both arms or both legs at the same time, you're going to increase deficiencies or muscular imbalances across the board. Plus, you're not going to be able to maintain proper range of motion. So since you can see my upper body, when you do bench press, if you're holding a bar, this is the range of motion. If you're doing flies, you can come all the way together. If you're doing dumbbells, you can come all the way together. Getting the humerus to come as far away and then as close together as possible is going to be the biggest thing that you want to do for working out, whether you're trying to train, for longevity, functional movement, pretty muscles, no matter what. Flies, for instance, especially because they're individual arms, a fly is a much better exercise for the chest than bench press could ever be, because bench press is going to eliminate 30 to 40% of your range of motion. I'm also not a big fan of putting a bar on your back and loading it up with a whole bunch of weight, unless that's your sport. I think the hip loaded squat function is a much better option. I'm a much bigger fan of single leg squats as well, because again, when you're using individual legs, what we find really often, I found this in even my pro athletes, you're going to have weaknesses in that one leg somewhere, the ankle, the hip, the knee, somewhere. If you do two legs at the same time, your body will compensate and it'll shift to protect that weakness. And so you never really actually see the weakness. But if you're doing single leg work, you're going to start seeing that knee twitch. You're going to start seeing that ankle twitch. You're going to start seeing the hip drop. So, that's glute med. That's, you can see the individual muscle groups that are weak, and you can then repair them then. If you're looking at a higher end athlete, a weak glute med or a weak hip flexor, or lack of range of motion in there somewhere could be the difference in that one step. And that's, when you boil it down, like a professional cornerback or something like that, half a step is the difference between, having a job or not. If you're a half a step behind the receiver, they catch it, that's a touchdown. You can't be a half step behind. So you've got to make sure that all the joints are moving properly. And just for the normal average everyday guy, we have to start thinking about what's going to happen when I'm 80, right? And so if you eliminate those little individual muscle weaknesses, you're going to have, the joints are going to move better. Everything's going to be moved better. Like you'll see people when they lay down, one foot will pitch out. And that is usually from muscular issues. Hypertonic glute med is one of the big ones that you find when you're doing single leg work, and you go, hey, when you stand up, you're supposed to rotate. You're not doing that. Oh, okay. We need to tweak X, Y, and Z to get that back to function. So that's my big issue with bars, is that I think that they are, one, creating injuries that shouldn't be there. You look at bench press. Go find anybody who's 40 or 50 who's been lifting since they were a teenager with bars. Most of them are going to have dots on their shoulders where they had shoulder surgery. So, it's kind of a very common thing. So, saving the shoulders, saving the function, I would say is a big piece, but really getting the musculature to get where it wants to go is the other one. And if you do bench press competitions, then obviously you have to do bench press. But if you just want to, have functional muscles and look pretty and all that type of stuff, I would drop the bars and go to dumbbell press and flies and stuff like that. Those are probably some of the biggest ones that I get question wise. The other one's on fasting. We've gotten a couple of questions on fasting. Fasting has, I think, a very interesting position in society now, because everybody's all pissy about something about it. I don't like the idea of doing a multi-day fast without taking supplementation, B vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids, things like this. And there's the argument that if you take anything besides water, that you're breaking your fast. Okay, I'm not going to argue that because I think that's a valid definition. The problem we get into is that, let's say that you live in Texas and you're doing a 10-day fast and you have to be outside for whatever reasons. If you're sweating, you're losing your electrolytes. Your body will not run right if you have low electrolytes. So you could die. And so getting the salt in with your water, I would highly recommend. So at what point do we say, no, anything besides water or coffee is bad? That's going to be kind of up to you. I'm a big fan of getting all your minerals in, all your vitamins, all the stuff, the CoQ10, giving your body all the chemistry it needs to run and forcing it to produce its ATP off of the fat and the muscle that is on your body. So allowing the body to go through gluconeogenesis, allowing the body to go through lipolytic ATP production, I think is extremely important. A lot of times, because if you look at how the body was designed, go back to original design, it was designed to do these things. And what we know about the body is that if you don't do the things it's designed to do, it gets bad at the things that you don't ever do. For instance, if you give your body a whole bunch of testosterone as a male, your testicles will shrink because your body no longer uses them for testosterone. So, what I always like to do is let's go through and let the body do what it's supposed to do. Some intermittent fasting and these type of things. But recognize there's still metabolic requirements. And those metabolic requirements require chemistry. They require the CoQ10. They require the calcium, the potassium, the sodium, all the magnesium, like all those things. So you're going to have to bring in your nutrients. So when I do fasting, and I eat once a day normally. And I'm going to go back to a 47 one where I eat once every 2 days here in a couple of days. And I will still take all of my supplementation. I'll still take all my RFA. I'll still take the probiotics. I'll still take a lot of that stuff. One of the things that I will be adding in when I start doing that is I will still be doing my bulletproof coffee. So, call that what it is. That's obviously a caloric function. But the goal of the fasting is to keep my body in a state where it's burning fat. And the easiest way to do that is to give it medium chain triglycerides and some of the longer function it's going to pull with chylomicrons, which are those larger 12 plus carbon chain fats, to maintain that function so that it's burning less of my muscle tissue and more of my fat tissue. But I also take all my supplementation to ensure that my body has the chemistry it requires to do that function. So I'll also take a little bit of collagen so that my body doesn't eat my muscle tissues to create blood sugar. It'll use the collagen for that. So, building out a diet like that is, I think, important when you're looking at function in the body or how are we going to move through this. So, that's some of the stuff you call it a bulletproof coffee fast. You can call it a pillars fast, because I don't think anybody else is out there pushing bulletproof coffee with all your minerals and supplementation and just no real food. So that's fine. We can call it the pillars fast. But that's kind of what I do. Those are some of the things that we push through. So if you guys have questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, or you guys can keep DMing us. The other thing is that if you guys need anything supplement-wise, we've always got it at pillarswellness.com. All of those have been tested for chemistry and for quantum function. So we use them in our muscle testing all the time, and we make sure that those are the ones that people are most agreeable with, because people have sensitivities and allergies to all kinds of things nowadays. And these have been the cleanest ones we've found that people don't have big issues with. So if you guys have any other questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, and we'll kind of move through it. If you guys need somebody to help you put together a diet and walk you through how to do it and how to put it together and all your options and stuff like that, give us a call. We do that all the time. It's one of the things we do with all of our health programs. We run a lot of 3-month long programs where we go through and we help you find the best diet for your body, for your functional lifestyle, and for your health. And then we kind of help you walk through it. We do the same thing with your exercise and your hormones and the whole deal. So we kind of put everything back together with you so you can figure out what the best options for you are. And then when you have questions, you can always ask. So it's getting healthy is a process, and trying to do it on your own is really hard. And so going through and kind of working with somebody, working with a team makes that a little bit easier. So that's kind of what we'll be doing. So if you guys have any questions to this up, otherwise have a fantastic day and a great weekend.